Now, the latest from ITV News in the Channel Islands with Emma Baker and James Webster.
Hello and welcome to ITV News.
Tonight, a special programme on this, the 74th anniversary of Liberation Day. Thousands of islanders fill the streets for parades and commemorative services in Jersey and Guernsey.
Always the same, it's just happy, 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 happy.
Every year it's been bigger, better.
We're so privileged to be here and share it with everybody.
For many, it's a moment of celebration to mark one of the most significant days in our history.
It meant such a lot to them to have their freedom back. So, no, I think we've got to celebrate. We've got to celebrate peace, haven't we?
And for some, it's a day to remember the dark times of the German occupation and the joy of that very first Liberation Day.
The rumours was going, oh, they've landed here, or they're coming in there, and you did not want to miss a second of anything. It was that mad.
Good evening. On this day, 74 years ago, British troops arrived on island shores to liberate the people of Jersey and Guernsey after 5 years of occupation by German forces.
And today, people have taken to the streets of St Peter Port and St Helier in their thousands to celebrate and commemorate that historic moment.
In tonight's programme, we'll hear from those who remember life during the occupation and those who may not have lived through it, but are equally determined it should never be forgotten.
Our reporters have been out and about to bring you a full roundup of Liberation Day 2019 in both islands. We'll start with Wesley Smith at the Jersey War Tunnels tonight. Wesley.
Good evening. Do you know, it feels right to be here of all places on this day of all days, because here the story of liberation and occupation is told in fascinating detail here at the Jersey War Tunnels through interactive exhibits and artefacts from the period. Now, all day long, we've been hearing from the voices of islanders with their reflections on what it was like to live through that period. And that's just what they want to hear here, ahead of a special project about the 75th anniversary, which is coming up next year. We'll have more on that in a moment. First, Claire Burton reports now on today's commemorations, reflections on times past and hopefully more peaceful times in the future.
Today and each Liberation Day, we remind ourselves of the importance of freedom, of an independent court service, of our right to self-government, including the right to determine our own laws.
Let us give hope. Where there is darkness, let us shed light.
Songs and speeches of freedom and tolerance on this Jersey and Guernsey's National Day. A reminder never to take those things for granted.
I think our parents would say they did an awful lot and they gave up a lot for us. So I think this has got to always be remembered, always.
Wherever you are in the world, if you've been occupied, you must remember that people died to free you.
As I was here on the actual day, it means everything. Freedom is a great thing.
As the liberation is reenacted, freedom for women is celebrated in Jersey, as 2019 marks 100 years since some women got the vote. In the States, an opportunity to remember female sacrifice in war.
Keep in mind the fortitude and courage of this island's women. The mothers, grandmothers, sisters and daughters whose bravery and nerve kept things going throughout the war.
In Guernsey, a celebration of our links with the British military, with senior military personnel visiting from the UK and joining the parade.
Clearly it's got a real spirit to it. The number of people on parade was incredibly impressive, and everybody's very much enjoying remembering the moment of liberation, but also I thought the theme that came out too very strongly was one of reconciliation and friendship with former occupiers.
The spectacle helping the younger generation understand the past.
Well, it's when we got liberated from the Germans and we got our freedom back.
Taking part in a parade, so celebrating what it means to everyone else, is of quite good importance and means a lot to me as well, being an islander now myself.
Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of St Helier, stories of incarceration, isolation and hardship are told.
To remember the 101 foreign force workers who perished and those who were persecuted in the island during the Nazi occupation.
The Nazis brought slaves from across Europe to build their fortifications. Gary Font's father was brought from Spain. 74 years since war ravaged mainland Europe, he's fearful of history repeating.
It's terrifying. What's quite close to home actually is what's happening in Catalonia and what happened in my father's hometown. And what concerns me, of course, is the right wing is showing its ugly head once again. So yes, I'm quite concerned. And again, we've got to get our children to remember ceremonies like this, but they've got to be taught what's happening in the world and to be fearful of right-wing organisations and right-wing rhetoric. It's extremely important that they learn that lesson as well.
A lesson Liberation Day organisers here say will bond islanders for generations to come. Claire Burton, ITV News.
And we'll have more on today's celebrations across the islands in just a moment. But as you see, I've come inside the war tunnels now, planned as a hospital, of course. Kathy Beshley joins me to look after the war tunnels, I know that. First, let's look at this project for next year. You want to hear the voices of people who lived through the occupation and indeed the liberation.
Yes, what we're looking for, obviously, it's the 75th liberation next year, so we want that new story. We want all islanders to get involved. It might have been their auntie has told them a story, or their parents are still alive and they want to get their story down on paper now.
It's an amazing place here, and of course we love the bunkers across the islands as well. There must have been the temptation in the past to say, look, we want to get rid of all this now, we want to move on. Why do you think it's important that we preserve this history?
Well, for me personally, I think you have to keep it going for the new generation. And if they weren't here, you'd only be able to read about these places in books. And I personally think you should come in and be able to see with your own eyes and be able to see exactly what is housed down here.
And indeed, a lot of people come every year, 95,000 or so, isn't it?
A minimum 95,000 each year come here, which is absolutely brilliant in these times.
Tell me about your own family, because you come from Jersey. Yes. Your relatives must have lived through these times too.
They did. My parents and my grandparents were both here during the war, the occupation, as well as most of my aunties and uncles. So I've got a few stories that's going to be told in the new exhibition as well.
And you have your own photographs and everything here?
We do. We've got a massive collection here of photographs that have been donated to us and that we've collected over the years. So we're going to use some of those for the new exhibition as well. But we just really want islanders to get involved with this fantastic project.
If there's one particular thing that stands out of people's memories of the occupation, as told here, what would that be?
Well, for me, it's how they actually lived during the occupation, you know. It must have been so hard for the mothers, the dads, who couldn't even feed their children or, get proper medical care as well, everything. There was running out of money, you were running out of food. You put that into the context of today, and you just can't imagine it.
Indeed. Kathy Beshley, thank you very much indeed. And I know that they're looking forward to hear stories from islanders who lived through the occupation. Get in touch with the Jersey War Tunnels. Now for more memories, back to you.
OK, Wesley, thank you.
Yeah, so many memories to come. And of course, today is also about celebration. One place islanders and visitors have been doing just that is Albert Pier in Guernsey.
There we've seen huge crowds gathering to remember the joy and jubilation of this day in 1945. Our reporter Anna Geary is there now. And Anna, 74 years since the end of the occupation, and what a day it's been.
It has, absolutely. And just a moment ago, you would have been able to hear more sound coming from the home front marquee. There's been music playing all day, entertaining islanders, taking them back to that era, that swing era of the 40s and 50s. And those performances are still continuing well into tonight. Now, today, thousands here and in Jersey turned out to celebrate that momentous day 74 years ago when the islands were freed from German rule.
Crowds cheered and waved their flags proudly as a cavalcade moved through Guernsey's seafront. A real sense of joy was felt in St. Peter Port.
Happy Liberation! Our parents and grandparents went through a lot, and it meant such a lot to them to have their freedom back. So, no, I think we've got to celebrate. We've got to celebrate peace, haven't we?
Well, I think it's wonderful that there are a lot of people still around that actually remember liberation, and we do what we can to support them and help them in their celebrations.
A celebratory atmosphere for those gathered in Jersey's St Helier as well, where more vehicles were dressed for the occasion. One woman was watching from the same spot where she was when the islands were liberated.
That was,
there she is.
That was 74 years ago today, excuse me. And I was here, I was standing about here, I suppose, with a crowd of people. So here I am there, behind the sailor.
Smiles all round. But today was called a warm-up to something bigger and better in 2020.
But it's a hugely important thing for the islands. And of course, 75th year coming up next year. They've slightly changed it this year, and this has been a rehearsal in preparation for that really, really magnificent events coming around next year.
But this year's was very special for one group of youngsters who popped over from Sark. It was their first time seeing Guernsey's Liberation Day.
What does Liberation Day mean to you?
Well, Liberation Day is basically when the Germans left from the Channel Islands, so it's a very important day. We've seen lots of parades and lots of fun games.
And how important is Liberation Day to you?
I find it's really important to me.
This must be a bit different to your farm in Sark.
Yeah, it's very different. Because in Sark we don't have like pavement roads, it's just all dirt. It's dirt roads.
And are you enjoying your day in Guernsey?
Yes, I like going to Guernsey.
And what does Liberation Day mean?
It means that when the Germans left, we should celebrate.
And as ever, it wasn't only islanders enjoying events. Their pets joined in the fun too. A day out for all the family, as the islands gave thanks, reflected and celebrated the end of the occupation. Anna Geary, ITV News.
Well, the party's not over yet. The sun is still shining here in St. Peter Port, and the music is continuing. There's also a firework display at 9:30 this evening. Now, as you just saw in my report there, I met some very cute youngsters from Sark School. They were popping over to Guernsey to celebrate their first Guernsey Liberation Day for the party. Sark was liberated the day after Jersey and Guernsey, so I'll actually be going over to Sark tomorrow to cover events there as well with some very special guests, a group of Chelsea pensioners and Gurkhas. But for now, I'm going to leave you, so I'm going to say bye from St. Peter Port, but I'm going to leave you with a very special message from those youngsters from Sark School.
What a lovely message.
So great to see them.
I know, Anna, thank you. Well, while today is an important one for every Channel Islander, there aren't many who can remember that very first Liberation Day.
But two who can are Don and Eileen, the 90-somethings who've been sharing their memories with us of life in Jersey through the years.
Yes, tonight they're recalling the huge scenes of spontaneous celebration as people living here were finally free again.
With the D-Day landings in the summer of 1944, France was liberated from Nazi rule. Allied forces could be seen from the shores of Jersey.
After several years under German occupation, how did that feel when you knew that British troops were close by?
At the very beginning, we felt that Winston Churchill had forgotten us. And we were not very pleased with him because he had landed in France and he'd forgotten his own people. But we soon realised that, 2 bombs?
He'd done the right thing.
Oh, of course he did.
If they'd have invaded here, there'd have been murder all around.
We wouldn't be here to tell the tale.
No, because of the way the Germans were entrenched. No, he definitely did the right thing.
The way the Germans had defended us.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
When did you know that the war had ended and they were coming to free the Channel Islands?
Well, you must remember that those who had wirelesses didn't shut up. They soon let everybody know.
Here is the Midnight News, and this is Alvar Liddell reading it.
And our dear Channel Islands are also to be freed today.
Well, when Churchill said our dear Channel Islands,
kept me going.
The whole island went absolutely mad. Yeah, 5 years is a long, long time.
It is when you look back.
Gosh.
Into the Channel Islands marched the British troops, gladly welcomed by the liberated inhabitants of the only parts of the British Isles to be occupied by the enemy. With due ceremony, the Germans hand over Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney and Sark.
We were running from one place, from the square to the harbour to West Park, because rumours was going, they've landed here, or they're coming in there, and you did not want to miss
anything.
Second of anything. It was that mad. Hey.
Did you manage to see them arrive?
Well, they came in.
St Helier Harbour.
In St Helier Harbour. Some came in at West Park, and like we said at the time, they even opened the front of the boat, and the tanks and all the rest came out. Something we'd not seen before.
No.
And as they were going through the crowds, did they shake your hand? Did you kiss them?
Oh, yes.
Cigarettes and toffees.
Oh, yes. And kissing the little ones. Oh, yes. It was a real happy... It seemed as if, we'd known them all our lives. They weren't strangers to us at all.
You can say that again.
Oh.
How was life in the next few days after liberation?
Oh, well, you did nothing. You did nothing. You milked the cows. If you were on the farm and you had the cows had to be milked twice a day and by hand. But that was all. You only did the absolutely necessary.
You had been under German occupation for 5 years. How did you feel looking forward? What was that feeling in Jersey at that point?
Oh, everybody was excited.
Oh, we were like kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were kids, I suppose, but...
Yeah, but everybody was like kids. Everybody was so...
You just couldn't get over it.
No.
It took a while to sink in.
I think it did.
We were suddenly under British rule, so of course they had to bring the time and the opposite side.
They must have changed it pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, I would think very soon.
Yeah, very soon.
Yeah. Probably the next time States set or something like that.
Marvellous. I often think I've been to most Liberation Day on the 9th of May. I think I've missed 2. But you can't compare the first one. The feeling.
I mean, just hearing it from someone who was there,
I know.
It's amazing.
It's so powerful, incredible. And it's those first-hand memories of people like Don and Eileen that fill the pages of the countless books and research files that have been gathered over the last 74 years.
One archaeologist and historian who spent more than a decade studying the time is Dr. Gilly Carr. Sasha Shipway's been speaking to her about the importance of preserving the history of the occupation.
An archaeologist by training, Dr. Gilly Carr has spent a large part of her career looking into the history of the occupation of the Channel Islands, even publishing a website listing all of the islanders deported to Nazi prisons and camps. Her family hails from Guernsey, but that's not the only thing that has drawn her into researching the history of the island.
Often I might meet the family of that person, and it'll be the living people who will share with me the story of their loved one, and then that will get me very interested in that story. And often it's a story where there's an unresolved injustice. In fact, several members of the Guernsey 8, they didn't come back after the war, and their bodies were lost. Their family never knew where they were. So I've been able to find their loved one somewhere in Germany, and in many cases to go with the family to find them and to sort of reunite them.
For Dr. Carr, now is as important a time as any to look back at the stories of islanders during the occupation.
It's a matter for me of raising awareness, of making sure that the landscape around us, you walk through town, are you seeing memorials and blue plaques and things like that commemorating people? For me, I think especially with the rise in right-wing politics in Europe at the moment, and unfortunately in the UK and certainly in America, it's so important to remember people who in the past stood up.
As well as profoundly impacting her professionally, her work has changed the way Dr. Carr identifies.
If someone had said to me, "What's your ethnicity? What's your identity?" I'd have said, "I'm British." But now I will always sort of start off talking about my Channel Islands ancestry. I think, I know more about that than my father's side. Even though I have his surname, it's my Guernsey identity and story that I know more about and that I feel more strongly connected to.
The connections of Dr. Carr and other islanders to the victims of Nazi persecution can be explored at an exhibition at the Guernsey Museum, which runs until the 12th of May. Sasha Shipway, ITV News.
And so important to remember and keep those records. Well, back to the celebrations now. They've been going on throughout the day. Among them, a group of jazz swing dancers have been in action in St Helier, recreating scenes from the 1940s.
Yes, and Sophie's got her dancing shoes on and he's with them now.
Well, I certainly do have my dancing shoes on because I'm with a bunch of Lindy Hoppers, and to tell me a little bit more about that, it's Daniel and Kelly. You've got a bit of a break at the moment while your dancers are doing well. So Daniel, just tell me, you set up the Jersey Lindy Hoppers. Tell me all about it.
Well, it was about 8 or 9 years ago. My wife and I came over to Jersey and looked around and realised if we wanted to carry on doing Lindy Hop, we had to start teaching people. And one of our first students was Kelly, who's been absolutely fantastic and now teaches with me. And it's been growing ever since. We've got a lovely crowd of people that are dancing away quite happily now.
They certainly are. They're doing a good job. You need a bit of a sort of ability to keep going, though, especially in this breeze. Now, Kelly, I do jive dancing. How different is this to jive?
Jive is all part of the same family as Lindy Hop, so you'd pick it up really quickly. It's it's all part of the same thing.
It's all fun. It's all exercise, isn't it? So we're seeing one dance here now, but what's your favourite dance out of the Lindy Hop that you do?
I love Lindy Hop in Charleston, and my favourite song was Accentuate the Positive.
Well, I think we're going to see a bit of that now, so if you'd like to take your places, and I hope you enjoy this for the next few moments. Well, if they can keep dancing like this in the sunshine, that'd be fantastic. But let's see if that sunshine's going to stay with us for the rest of the evening. Here's your forecast.
Yes, it's going to be warm tonight.
Yes Electrical, sponsors of the ITV Channel Islands weather.
Well, the winds will slowly ease throughout the course of this evening. I think that's been the biggest bugbear throughout the course of the day with regards to the weather, because certainly the sunshine's played ball, and we're going to continue to see fair periods during the overnight period. However, as we get towards dawn tomorrow, the winds do ease up, but we do see the introduction of some cloud as well. So temperatures overnight falling away to lows of 7 or 8 degrees, unlikely to be a ground frost as a result. And then tomorrow, sadly, nowhere near as bright as today. The best of the sunshine will be first thing in the morning. Into the afternoon, afternoon, we're looking at that cloud thickening up, and by the evening, some fairly heavy and persistent rain forecast. Top temperatures as a result a little bit down on today's highs, around 15, 16 degrees. We're looking at 12 to 14 at best, and obviously the UV index not as high either. Now, the plus side with the winds easing means that the sea state will be much lighter. So we've got a sea state that's slight. High tides around about 10:30 tonight onwards, and the sea temperature's 12 degrees. The good news for those of you wanting a little bit of warmth, well, take a look at the jet stream. That is going to move position, and thankfully it means that as we head into the weekend, we'll see our temperatures climb to about average, if not a little bit warmer. Those warm colours being introduced from the south and the blue colours moving away to the east. And that means that our temperatures by the time we get to Sunday, Monday, will be around 17 degrees. Plenty more in the way of sunshine. Between now and then, though, we've just got this rainfall to contend with, particularly to come tomorrow evening, and possibly even the risk of some hill fog patches. So fairly unsettled until the end of the weekend. But Sophia's helping me with the summary tonight. Many thanks for letting me use your picture tonight. Whatever you're up to, have a lovely evening, and I'll hand you back to the studio.
Yes Electrical, sponsors of the ITV Channel Islands weather.
And that's it from us on this, the 74th anniversary of the liberation of Jersey and Guernsey. And just a reminder that tomorrow night, as we said, we'll be in Sark to see the commemorations of its liberation. That's tomorrow night at 6.
The ITV Evening News is next with Mary Nightingale, but we'll leave you now with more pictures from today's celebrations. From all of us here, good night.
Good night.